What is up, Star Wars Unlimited collectors and fans? I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Al Bender, to help me walk through this ripping of this Star Wars Unlimited hobby box. Al, good to have you on.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Al knows more about this game and plays competitively a little bit more. What can you tell me about some of your recent plays and some of your recent deck wins? Because you've been playing this locally a lot, and it's been pretty popular where you're at, right?
Yeah, it's been super fun. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of great decks on the internet that you can build. I feel like the best way to learn a game is to try to build your own decks and see what works and what doesn't work. So, I actually started with a Cunning Grand Inquisitor deck, which is super fun and super weird. My opponents had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and it was just a very fun experience, I think, for everybody involved. And now I'm playing a Vigilant Han deck, which is really fun. I think people are sleeping a little bit on Blue Hero. I think it's really powerful, and I think Han's ability is incredibly powerful. So it's been fun. It's a great game.
You've been one to kind of pioneer decks that are like people don't really look at. What would you say is like the meta as it stands right now? I mean, what are some of the hot decks? I kind of have an idea, but
so I think the game is actually fairly balanced in terms of like the traditional aggro, mid range, and control. In terms of aggro, I think there's a debate over whether Sabine or Leia. So either green Sabine or red Leia is a better deck. Boba is obviously the king of the mid range, and then Iden has been sort of the go-to for control. Although we just had the biggest like 5K tournament so far in the game's history in Orlando, and that was won by a blue Vader control deck, which is really interesting. So I think the meta has really evolved a lot and is staying pretty fresh, which I think is really fun and a good sign for the game.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like so far from what I've seen, you could win with different style decks. I mean, I felt like Lorcana right off the bat kind of leaned one way pretty heavily, but there's even more cards in this, right? I mean, there's 257, 258 cards, I think, in this right off the bat, and it was meant to be able to be played with itself, whereas like Lorcana First Chapter was like, oh, well, this is meant to be synergistic with chapter 2, 3, 4 as we build them on. So some of these cards are just going to be like not make sense or not be good, right?
I think there's also two things about this game that makes the meta more flexible than in Lorcana. The first is that the ability that because you have leaders and you can build around their specific abilities, not just the colors ability, there's just a lot more flexibility for the types of decks you can build. The second thing is because you can play cards out of aspect, sometimes like any card can technically be in any deck. And sometimes people will catch you off guard with something. One of my favorite things to do in my Blue Han Hero deck is, somebody buffs up their Darth Vader leader or like their Chirrut leader, and then I drop Power of the Dark Side on them. They never see it coming because
oh yeah,
not a hero deck, right? And they have to banish their leader because they just never anticipated. So I just think that makes the game so fun and so dynamic.
So this is a game that allows you to bring extra cards to swap in and out of your decks, correct? Yep. So have you found yourself using that, or is that just like a nice to have?
So it's definitely extremely useful. So as a person who's like relatively new to card gaming, I certainly have not perfected the use of the sideboard yet. It looks like you might have something fun there. So I'll pause for a second.
Look at an opponent's hand and discard a card from it. And Fighters for Freedom is a hyperspace foil.
Very nice.
It was good to get those. You don't get many of those. You were saying?
What was I just saying?
I'll put that aside. We were talking about the swapping out of.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing. So there's like, it's really decks can be really matchup dependent. So depending on what you are matching up against, you really do want different cards in your deck. I think the challenge I've found is that I haven't committed enough time to actually practicing with the cards in my sideboard against different matchups. So when I've like shown up on game day to actually play, I'm like, do I want to play these new cards that I haven't actually played with before because I don't really know how it affects the balance of the deck. So I think it's something that I personally will get better at, but I think it's going to make the game much better.
Certainly is an interesting dynamic. I haven't heard of that from another game, but then again, I haven't played that much.
I think it's pretty typical in a lot of games. They just don't have it in Lorcana. That Lando is not very good most of the time, but when he is good, he is so good.
Well, Saboteur. When this unit attacks, ignore Sentinel, defeat the defender's shields. When played, return up to 2 friendly resources to their owner's hands. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So playing in Han, I like to resource like my big cost characters early in the game. So like Redemption is an 8 cost vehicle that allows you to heal 8 damage, and it comes in as a Space Sentinel. So when I draw that, I resource it early, and then if I'm in a matchup against Control, I can just play Lando. I can go into my resources and get that and other things I need to heal or deal with like late game threats and pull them into my hand. It's like such a versatile like tool.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, my intention was to build out these synergistic, like non-rare heavy decks, like really focus on the commons on commons for the most part. But it's going to be really tempting to just throw in some of these like higher up rares where I can. It binds all things. I'm not sure I have this one. Heal up to 3 damage from a unit. If you control a force unit, you may deal that much damage to another unit. Okay, so that could be good.
Yeah, if you're running a blue hero deck, that's a really good card.
Yeah, that's interesting. And General Dodana, uncommon foil. I'm stacking them in. I'm stacking these common uncommon foils in my super foil stack, which I haven't gone through yet, but I'll put them aside if they're a hyperspace foil. I will say I like opening these paper packs more than the plastic packs.
I agree.
Plus these cards feel nice. Like, I don't know. They handle well. Oh, cheer it. Okay. Got a rare cheer it. Chopper base. Okay. On to the commons. Occupier siege tank. We've played with these. And you were right. I think a long time ago you mentioned about this game that I can appreciate is there's so many commons and uncommons that are like really solid cards. Like you don't need to have all legendaries and rares and all the expensive cards to run a decent deck. Like the majority of your deck will probably be commons and uncommons, with like a few rares or legendaries sprinkled in as you adapt it for the most part, which is great because if everybody had to run legendary cards, like this would be a really expensive game really quick and everybody would be throwing out their commons and uncommons.
It's so true. I think one of the mistakes I actually made early in the game is like, if I was fortunate to pull legendaries, I really wanted to play them. And then sometimes when I would run the deck and be like, actually, this deck is better without that. Like I was running like 3 Force Lightnings in the Vader deck. And the reality is like, you're not always going to have a Force unit out. So it ends up not being as good of a card as it seems like it'll be on its face. So yeah, I mean, kudos to the creators of the game. Like they clearly wanted to make a game where it is like fun to play. And also you can actually create a competitive deck at multiple different price tiers.
Well, I was talking to Cam when I went to Florida and we played this game. Like we just ripped open a 2-player starter deck and just played in a restaurant. And I had only played with you beforehand, right? And I think he had only played like once or twice before too. So we weren't like 100% on it, but yeah, like I think we kept putting resources down, even though you don't have to after a while. But it didn't matter. Like I was running like a Vader Emperor like deck, so like it worked in my favor because all my stuff was like heavy hitters, so it just completely like obliterated him, right? But there's a lot of like a lot to be said with some of these lower value cards that actually can do a lot of interesting things. Like some of these 2s and 3s, like the game gets interesting really quickly. And some of these heavy hitters, like even this Chimera, like seems really cool, but you have to be able to get up to 8 resources too, which is you have to survive for a little while to get there. Is shielded. Name a card. An opponent reveals their hand and discards a card with that name from it. Okay, well, if you know their deck, that's better. But if you don't know,
that's not like a super popular card, but I do think it has utility, particularly if you're playing against a lot of vigilance. The Avenger is such a nasty card, and that is like a good tech against it. If you're playing Boba, for example, I mean, I think like the key that I've learned to playing this game like a little bit more competitively is you have to understand whether you're the aggressor or whether you're the defender, because that really dictates whether or not you're choosing to attack base or whether you're trying to keep their board clear. And understanding when you plan to be the aggressor and when you plan to be the controller when you build your deck is really, really important because you like building around that archetype, but also building the flexibility to play both can be a really valuable asset.
Okay. Yeah, but then how does that come into play if you're playing a 3 or 4 player game? Or I guess all tournaments are one-on-one, right? But when we played
Yeah.
that 4-player game, I mean, that's kind of like all bets are off. You're like kind of have to do both.
Yes, Twin Suns was very fun, but I do not feel like I have any strategic knowledge, given that both times we played, my 6-year-old won. So
Well, he's yeah, you make these decks for him. You're like, oh, this will be simple, easy to learn, and then it's just like really difficult to beat him.
yes, for those who weren't there, he was playing Vader Palpatine, and our friend Forrest had built up. He had like Luke on board, and he also had Obi-Wan guarding Luke, and was like about to win on the next turn. And Ashton just super laser blasted all of us and took away all of our
Like
units.
changing the game completely. That was great.
Gideon's good, but yeah, Twin Suns is a totally different strategy. You don't want to stick your neck out too much.
Yeah, I enjoyed that 4-player game because it just felt kind of wild, you know. It's I don't know, but I look forward to playing this more. Ooh, another hyperspace here. Putting the hyperspace aside this time. Trying to be more strategic with those. All right, we're familiar with all these. I will say some of the art has grown on me a little bit too. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty critical of the art initially, but what I've come to understand is that's a cool looking card in hyperspace.
I like that. Yeah.
Is they're
Oh,
able
nice.
to merge prequel, sequel, Mando, Andor, Ahsoka, Clone Wars, Rebels. Like they're able to blend it all together and make it feel like it's all part of the same universe. So in that way, I actually really like it because it's all new, no matter where you're looking at it from. So they're also able to bring in, you know, Thrawn and Legends and other stuff and make it feel like it's all one big world, you know, because that is the goal, right? To make it all feel seamlessly like a part of it. And as they bring in like new elements of Star Wars or new creatures, aliens, characters, stories, enemies, whatever, they can just keep building on that. Well, there's a hyperspace Sabine. All right, we'll put that away.
Yeah, I agree. When I first saw it, I was like, like I'm not into the art. I'm not sure that I'm going to be interested in playing this. And then I played it for the first time. I was like, okay, this is a super fun game, but I still don't love the art. But it has grown on me over time, and now I actually do like it.
Well, Cam was saying that he invested heavily into Destiny and then feels like he got kind of screwed on that. He
Yeah, I
kept
think a lot of people feel that
sold
way.
a lot of it, yeah. But in that way, maybe Final Fantasy games kind of learned from their lessons a little bit. I've seen some nuggets of, you know, I think there's some elements from that. There's some elements from other games. They had some titles that were similar to Star Wars CCG games, so I don't know if that was like a nugget nod or not. I thought that was a nice touch. Redemption. Is this another redemption? Didn't you say you needed another one?
I do. Ooh,
Now,
nice.
hyperspace foil resupply.
That's a pretty good one. I mean, that's a very playable card. So
yeah, that's cool. So that's our second hyperspace foil.
Yep, I think typically you get 3. You might get 4.
Yeah, that sounds about right. If I buy a bulk lot and there happens to be like 3 or 4 in there, I'm like, I'm just buying someone else's box, pretty much.
Basically,
they just didn't like it. But that's fine. I don't mind getting a discount. But I will see. I think it will be come a point where you're just going to get stuck with all these commons. I think for those who have bought, you know, cases and cases, they're probably swimming in commons and uncommons that they'd have no use for. But it's hard to sell that as a lot of like just commons and uncommons because it's like, all right, somebody will buy it, but they're not going to spend that much.
that's fair. Although I will say that I like expected that to be the case for me, but I have actually loved having tons and tons of commons and uncommons because it means I can build multiple different decks at the same time. You know, so instead of having like 1 or 2 decks that I have to keep, or one deck of like each type, you know, I can build multiple different decks simultaneously and then just rotate out the rares or the legendaries that are needed. And it's just like honestly, it's made the experience of deck building a lot better for me. I also think the fact that you only need 3 of each instead of 4 of each is actually huge. You know, it's like drastically reduces the cost of
Yeah.
playing the game. And it also means that like
They're going to be more unique decks. They're not going to be heavy in one thing. Yeah.
yeah.
I think that'll make for a better gaming experience, period. I agree. I think having 3 is much better for sure. Have you played with Emperor's Royal Guard? Like control efficient
Yeah,
units?
that's a great card. It's a great card in Palpatine. It's actually the best 3-drop in the game, probably in Palpatine,
Oh yeah.
because it's a
Well,
3/5. Actually, well, sorry, other than Boba. Um, but other than Boba, there's no other 3/5 in the game. And then if you have an official out, it's a Sentinel. So that's a. But even outside of Palpatine, it's still a really strong 3-drop.
hmm. Well, this is a rare foil, so it's different than the common uncommons we've been getting.
So that in this set, that's probably the worst rare or the least playable rare. However, the designers were talking about a card that I believe is going to be in set 2 that is going to make that card relevant. So I don't know. My personal speculation is like I wouldn't be surprised if it's like some type of Death Starry thing that's like really expensive.
Well, play a non-rebel unit from your hand for free. Deal damage to your base equal to its cost. So yeah, if they invent a non-rebel card that is awesome, then
Right.
yes, it could be awesome. So that's one of those cards that over time will only become more valuable because there'll be more options to play
Right.
with.
I mean, let's say there's like a 12 cost Death Star or something like that that is devastating, and you can play it for 7 and deal 12 damage to your base. Like that would be interesting. It'll be really interesting to see how they balance that because that card will like. I feel like it's hard to make that card playable but not overpowered.
Yeah, it's like one of those gotta once you make that card, now you gotta watch it or you're gonna have to errata it,
Yeah.
down the road. Which I hope they don't have to do too early. I'm hoping that they've kind of mapped out. Oh, good, another heroic sacrifice.
Oh, nice.
I think I needed another one of these for deck. And a common Wampa foil. Throw that in the massive foil pile.
All right, so no legendaries yet.
I did end up putting like these regular like one of each of these regular base cards in a binder because I found it easier to kind of quick look up like a card and be like, oh, is this what I want to use or like not, like as a reference as opposed to like going up and down on the screen. I was like, this is much more helpful.
Yeah. Are you on SWU DB, by the way?
On what DB?
SWU DB. So a really awesome
No.
member of the community created a database for Star Wars. It's an excellent tool. You can basically just build decks in there and save your decks and look at other people's decks and stuff like that. It's a really great tool.
Oh, is that how you shared that deck with me? That one?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you could like comment on.
Oh,
We
nice
got a
hit.
Luke Skywalker. It is base, but it is a legendary, and I don't have this one, so.
Hey, that's a $60 card right now. So
I know. I was looking at it because I was like, oh yeah, I think I see if I can get one of these for my deck, and I was like, whoa, hello. So this card alone basically covered half the cost of this box.
Yep.
Very, very nice. I think that's the first legendary we pulled too, right? These are all rare.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of these are decent rares to play with. Don't get me wrong, but
Definitely.
I'm trying to think. The first box I ripped, I know you watched it. I was just too eager to rip it at the time, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna wait for Al for the next one because I don't know enough about these cards yet.
That loot card is so good.
It really is. Restore 3 when played. Give an enemy unit -3/-3 for this phase. And if a friendly unit was defeated this phase, give that enemy unit -6/-6 for this phase. So you basically like zero out anybody.
Oh yeah, I can't tell you how many times I played against like Leia, and because on Han you can play Luke on turn 5 if you like play it carefully, where they'll be like, oh, I cleared your board, and then I flip over Han, like drop a resource, drop the Luke, and because a character was removed from play, it does -6/-6, and it just straight up removes their Leia. Like it's devastating. It's such a good card.
Bodhi Rook And Scout Biker Pursuer.
So Bodhi is a really, really strong card. There's, with the exception of like double yellow Boba, he doesn't see a lot of play right now just because there's not a lot of reason to run double yellow. But as more cards come out, that's a card to watch because I think that is a very powerful
So
deck.
yeah, why aren't there many double yellow?
There aren't many double aspect decks in general. And I think that was deliberately the case. There's only a couple double aspect cards, so the incentive for running a double aspect is a lot lower than it will be in future sets when there are a lot more. Again, it's an interesting thing about the game that it'll be interesting to see how they balance it in the future. All right, Obi-Wan, that's pretty nice.
Got an Obi-Wan here. Okay.
He'll go well with your
valuable. He'll go in the deck. And then another Gladiator foil.
Oh, I didn't get to tell you my favorite thematic experience of playing the game. In my Han deck, I play You're My Only Hope, which is a 3-cost card that allows you.
Yeah, it like helps you if you're like really down though, right?
Yeah. So it's a 3-cost card. It allows you to play any card that costs 5 or less for free, or reduces the cost by 5. And so I flipped it over and I drew an Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I played You're My Only Hope and then drew Obi-Wan Kenobi, which was
That's
thematically and
awesome.
gameplay wise both excellent.
Oh man. Moment of silence, hyperspace. I feel like, I guess it's hyperspace is kind of like that first tier of like a parallel, right? And then there's like regular foil is like maybe the next difficulty after that because you're only getting one. But then the hyperspace foil is like not only beyond a foil, it has to be like that extra variant. So right, so it's like the extra rare. I don't know. Do you know what the pull rates are by chance? Statistically, your odds. Oh, we got
okay, command. That's nice.
Yeah, choose 2 in any order. Give 2 experience tokens to a unit. Friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to a non-unique enemy unit. Okay. Put this event into play as a resource. Return a unit from your discard pile to your hand. Discard pile? Like the trash pile? Like if something was lost?
Yeah. So like if someone defeated a unit, you can pull it from your discard back into your hand.
Ooh.
So this is a super powerful card, and some people are running double green. There are a few double aspect decks of each type, but some people are running double green in particular because you can put that into play as a resource. So if you're running like Palpatine or Tarkin or like somebody who wants to like ramp really quickly,
try to save an extra turn, like
yeah, exactly. The fact that you can play resupply on turn 3 and then play that on turn 4, or skip resupply and play DJ Death Star, you know.
Ooh, a Boba Fett.
Nice.
For space.
So interestingly, back to your previous question, the hyperspace non-foil cards. So the foil cards pringle a little bit. So if you're playing competitively, they can be considered marked cards because if you can tell that it's different from the other cards, you can actually be disqualified for that. So
so they don't let you play with them then.
Right. So a lot of serious players don't want to play with foils unless they're going to play with an entire foil deck.
K2SO, another K2SO. Nice. So we got it. We got another K2SO.
Nice.
Wow, that's a cool looking card. Yeah. So here's another hyperspace foil. This is our third one here.
So all of that is to say that generally the hyperspace non-foil versions are usually more valuable than the foil regular cards. The foil hyperspace are usually still the most valuable.
But yeah, I guess you got to be pretty hardcore to like say I'm going to go after the hyperspace foils like as a set. You know, I could see people going after just hyperspace, right?
Yeah,
it seems like doable, like difficult but doable. The regular foils for the most part seem okay.
Yeah, I mean there have definitely been some cards where like Vader, for example, the foil version of Vader was cheaper than the regular version of Vader for a long time.
It's probably not the case anymore, is it?
Yeah, but the difference is like $5 or $10.
Yeah, because I think there's some people that just dismiss foils right off the bat. They're like they just want it to be able to play it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they're like, whatever.
I really like that Kanan card.
Yeah, that's a good card. I'll see that in decks. The Bendu.
All right.
This
Hyperspace Rare is pretty good. You usually get like one per box.
Count Dooku and Krellian Freighter. These common foils have been plaguing me here. Getting a lot of common foils. I guess that's the name of the game, right? I'm probably stuck with like 5 or 6 of the same common foil at this point. Castro City Hyperspace. Okay.
So a funny quirk of TCG Player is that like it may have corrected itself now, but early on TCG Player, if you wanted like a hyperspace Castro City, it was going to cost you like 50 cents. But if you wanted a hyperspace like experience token, it was going to cost you like $2, even though it's exactly the same card. It's the opposite side of it.
Oh, we got another rare foil.
That's pretty nice.
Del Nico. What are some of the best pulls you've pulled out of your boxes? Because you ripped open that box when I was at your house, but you seemed pretty upset about
it. So all told, including product that I've purchased and won or played like sealed, I've opened probably like 9 boxes.
That's a lot of boxes.
Yeah. One of which I had planned to save, but my 6-year-old really wanted to open, so he's slowly working his way through that one. But so I've opened 2 regular Vaders, a Vader foil.
Okay.
2 regular Lukes, a Boba hyperspace. Command was like my card. I opened, I think, 3 regular commands, 2 foil commands, 2 hyperspace commands, and a hyper foil command.
So you just kept getting
yeah, I got a ton of event cards. So I got 2 hyperspace aggressions, I got a hyperspace force lightning. So at the time when I opened them, they were like $4 to $6 cards, so they were disappointing. But now they've gone up a lot. So,
but you kept them all, right? You haven't sold.
Oh yeah. Well, I did trade away one Devastator when it was $12. It's now like $36, and I have 0. I mean, not Devastator, Avenger, and now I have 0 Avengers. So I wish I'd kept that one, but yeah, it's the only one.
But if you weren't playing with it, then
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, whatever. All right, we got 4 packs left here. How am I doing so far?
So you should still get one more legendary at least. I would say typically you average 4 in a box, although only 3 are guaranteed. I would say, I mean, the Luke is the big hit, right? So that alone, I think, makes this an above average box. But other than the Luke, I would say so far it's like a meh box.
Yeah, I'd say it's fairly meh. Although I'm happy I picked up some cards I was actually going to look at to getting singles if I didn't get them.
So yeah, I mean,
the trouble.
K2SO is like a $13 card, so that's a good rare. Hyperspace Bendu is probably like $5 or $6. Seven Sister I think is like a few bucks now. So you got some decent rares in there.
Yeah. And common foil. Throw that in the massive foil stack here. I'll probably have to sort through foils tomorrow or something.
Grand Inquisitor. You've gotten a ton of rare leaders, weirdly.
Oh, really? That's weird.
I mean, it feels weird. It feels like you've gotten like maybe one, like maybe one or 2 more than usual.
The problem is you only need 1, right?
I mean, that's true.
Like they only make more because in the event that you open this for draft or something, like you can actually play the game.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Uncommon, fallen lightsaber rare, and another common foil. Lots of common foils. All right, 2 packs left. Still looking for another legendary here. Well, I mean, we had Luke and Command, so you're thinking we should get 3?
Yep. I at least have not seen a box with fewer than 3. Although I guess I don't know if it's possible or not.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's somebody venting about it on the group. Do you follow the group on Facebook?
I am on a lot of Discords, but I'm not on Facebook.
Oh, there is a whole big Star Wars Unlimited Facebook group too. That's the only reason I use the Facebook is for these different Star Wars groups and Mario groups. Like I don't actually use it for its sole purpose of connecting with people.
I mean, you are connecting with people just about a specific topic.
Yeah, the communities. I'm there for the communities. Oh, another chopper, and the force is with me. I am one with the force. The force is with me.
All right, well,
force is with me. So this should be.
There should be a legendary in here, otherwise.
Otherwise, it's just poop.
Just otherwise, poop. Yeah.
I mean, for what I spent on it with everything in here, it's probably.
Oh, I think you've gotten your money back for sure, regardless of whether there's a legendary in here. But obviously, I would like to.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I don't feel disappointed in it. It's not like a lotto hit, but it's not exactly a bomb either. All right. I'm one with the force. The force is with me. I had no choice rare and Homestead Militia common foil.
Wow.
So no other legendary.
That's crazy.
Maybe because they're like, we gave him Luke. Like, most of the foils were common, uncommon. We had 2 rare foils. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 hyperspace, I believe.
So hyperspace is, you usually get a hyperspace in 2/3 of your packs. So 2/3 of your packs will have a hyperspace in them, but they may have more than one hyperspace. So you usually end up getting between like 16 and 24 hyperspaces in a box.
So 20 is right in the middle there. We had 3 hyperspace foils.
Yep. Did you get 2 commons and an uncommon?
Yep. 2 commons and an uncommon, yeah. And then there's a few other rare leaders in here. For sure too. But otherwise nothing crazy. Yeah, like here's Grand Inquisitor. Here's Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think I had him. We had Emperor and Chirrut. Yeah, the rest are commons.
I think I saw you had a Han. Did you? Maybe that was.
I already. Oh, maybe in the hyperspace, but I already have a Han. I think somewhere too. There's Boba Fett hyperspace.
You had a Tarkin hyperspace.
Sabine. Copper base, Emperor. Yeah. So.
All right, well, go back through your rares at some point and see if we missed a 3rd legendary in there before we slander.
Dooku, K2SO, Bodhi Rook, Heroic Redemption for a cause I believe in. Chimera for Orlando, Spark, Saw Gerrera.
All right.
Yeah. So that's the name of the game. So rating this box, we'll give it a 6.5. 7.
I guess I would give it a 5.
5.
Maybe a 4. Maybe between a 4 and a 5. Because like if you had gotten like Luke is basically the price of 2 solid legendaries. So like if you had gotten 2 solid legendaries instead of the Luke, like it would be kind of like an average box. So
yeah, I would have liked one more legendary, but oh well.